whether to grant leave to proceed on 7 petitions challenging the dissolution of Parliament and the date of elections. Now, the Elections Commission of Sri Lanka had already submitted in court that it would not be possible to hold elections on the 20th of June. What will the court's decision be tomorrow? What interim reliefs, if any, will be granted tomorrow? How can we ensure that we have a free and fair election for the 9th Parliament of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka? To discuss this and more, we are joined today by 3 representatives of 3 of the major election monitoring organizations in the country. All 3 are also representatives of the March 12th movement for clean politics. Let me quickly introduce them to you. We have Mr. Asoka Obesekara, the Executive Director of Transparency International Sri Lanka. Thank you, Asoka, for agreeing to be on the show this evening. We're also joined by Mr. Manjula Gajanayaka, the National Coordinator of the Centre for Monitoring Election Violence. Thank you, Manjula. It seems that we see more of you on Face the Nation as elections draw closer. And also, another, can we say, comrade in arms in the election monitoring, Mr. Rohan Hettiarachchi, the Executive Director of People's Action for Free and Fair Elections, or PAFREL. I'd like to start this evening with Mr. Rohan Hettiarachchi. Mr. Hettiarachchi, is it possible to hold an election on the 20th of June? What needs to happen? What sort of conditions need to be put in place if we are to ensure that the people of Sri Lanka are able to participate and exercise their franchise in a free and fair election?
Well, I think the 20th of June now, as you mentioned from the beginning, the Election Commission has already declared that he is not in a position to have elections on 20th of June. And also, legally, the Election Commissions need to give minimum 5 weeks period for a political party and the candidate to continue their campaigning. So that is the minimum legal requirement. So whenever the date which we decide, we in a sense the election commissions, so they have to give minimum 5 weeks for political party. So anyway, there is no space for elections commissions to go for elections on 20th June. But the second part of your questions that you whether we can have a free and fair elections with these conditions. I think this is the first time the entire world facing this kind of disaster situations. So entire world is affected with the COVID-19. So the Sri Lanka also now we have to face for very important election for the country, the parliamentary elections. Now we know that with this situation there are some countries we continue the elections. For example, I mean the very famous example for Sri Lanka is South Korean elections, but there are about I think 60 the countries postponed the elections. I have noticed the CMEB, Mr. Manjula Gajanayaka has prepared the list. I think 52 countries he has listed from the beginning. Now it's go beyond that number. But if we start with all other activities with the corona situations, now countries has already opened in certain extent. Now the agriculture and factories, so various the development programs from the government side, they are starting those things, and the general public also starting their day-to-day work. So with this situation, with the health guidelines, following the health guidelines, so we have to consider the elections also, because we can't continue without parliament for longer period. Now it's almost more than 3 months now. It's going to end by tomorrow. Actually midnight today. So how we are going to have elections with this situation? So that is the critical question for everyone now. So in my opinion, as the election monitoring organizations, head of the organization, as well as the citizens of the country, I think number one, when we decide the date for elections, so we have to consider the health situations. Not only the government officials, of course government officials, elections officials, we have to be very careful on their health conditions, because They work for democracy. Even though it is their duty, they are the people who are in front line. Then the police. Police also get engaged with the elections period. And mostly the political party and the candidate. Because the elections official may be the district level, some official may be not day to day engaged with the public, only some occasions. But the candidate, if they really work for their elections, they have to deal with the public, thousands of public during this period. So we have to consider whether they are how we are going to safeguard their health conditions, and the elections observers, and also the media. Media also do a major role during the elections period. So one side we have to consider how we are going to maintain the health, following the health experts guidelines. That is one side. And secondly, actually there are a couple of areas where we need to consider. So I'm trying to make
as an election monitoring organization, what are the challenges that you're facing with monitoring this election to ensure that it's free and fair? Because although we don't have an election date, we are technically in an election period.
Yeah, let me finish what I try to explain. The other areas where we need to seriously consider equal playing field. There's no point just to have elections if you can't maintain the equal playing field for each and every candidate. So that need to consider by the Elections Commission whenever they decide the date. And thirdly, the trust. How the Elections Commission is going to build the trust among the public, among the government officials about the election process and the health situations. And also the complaint mechanism. They call it now EDR. Because as you mentioned, now during this period, we have submit number of complaints to them. Especially, I know the CMEB because we are very closely working each other. He has submitted number of complaints, but we do not know what has happened, whether they have taken any actions. So there should be a proper complaint mechanisms. So if the political party or a candidate, they face any sort of issue related to elections, there should be a system, transparency mechanism within the Elections Commission premises. So whatever the place, there should be a system. And whether we can have the good the turnout during elections, because with the COVID situations, sometimes elderly people may not rise to come to polling stations, and maybe the mothers sometime. So we do not know the real situations on the elections day. So what is the mechanism to bring the people at least 50% of the 50% turnout on the elections day?
Thank you, Mr. Etiarachi. I'd like to move to Manjula on that note. Manjula, Ronu mentioned that you've already filed several complaints with the Election Commission and you don't know what kind of action has been taken. What can you do as an election monitor to ensure that the complaints that are made, that what kind of follow-up action can you take to ensure that action is being taken by the Commission and by law enforcement on these issues?
Yes, actually that the first time in election history of Sri Lanka we saw that it is again let me to explain the process what Election Commission is doing with election dispute resolutions. At the beginning actually even Election Commission, not Election Commission, actually Department of Election didn't have such a proper mechanism, but luckily TAFREL helped them. In around 2000 actually they established a separate complaint unit. After that gradually they were starting district election complaint units based in district election officers. Now in 2015 actually we saw that there was a separate well planned election dispute resolution, not under that name actually, there's a separate section. But with last presidential election, they established a separate election dispute resolution unit under additional election commissioner. But until now, though they have such a separate unit actually, unfortunately what we saw that yes, there are 3 members of elections and there are some mechanism that additional and deputy and assistant commissioners there. But what we are seeing that actually when we submit such a, when we submit a serious complaint to EDR unit, that specific complaint is going before members of commissions. But let's see that when we have, if we have submit something like special, the specific complaint, if they are coming to review, it will take long time. We know that actually they are not meeting daily. They are, maybe there are 2 or 3 meetings only for a month. Then that's the thing actually. That
this
means
is 2 or 3 meetings of the 3 members of the commission.
Yeah, they are convening their commission members meeting at least maybe twice or thrice in a month time. That is a problem. Another thing is actually that yes, today we received a letter from Election Commission that as election observation missions, we have a right to go there, visit there, and actually see what has happened to our complaint. But the thing is, we are passing a pandemic situation. We can't go there. Then it is their responsibility to develop such a mechanism to use in new media and new technologies. But unfortunately, we can't see that such kind of things are placed in there. But let me to tell that there are good, capable assistant commissioners, young, dynamic people are there. The thing is actually there should be a willingness and also positive aspect. Then,
are you saying that there is an absence of delegation of responsibilities?
Definitely. That is a traditional problem with election commissions actually. Because once EDR established, we observed actually, we thought that election complaining mechanism will be established properly and also they will take actions. Let me to start with something that during presidential election time, we have submitted maybe nearly 200 specific election related complaints. Out of them actually, there are some of very specific, let's say like Director General of Samurdhi in last time, Mr. Bandar. Against him actually we have submitted several complaints. Even now, we have submitted a specific complaint against current Director General of Samurdhi. Day before yesterday, I asked from the chairman what has happened to that. He told me that yeah, we have submitted it to Auditor General. Then we have to go behind Auditor General what has happened. That though there's a EDR unit, I don't think that they have taken necessary measures to taken necessary actions, prompt actions on our complaints. It is a long process, we know, but when we are looking back, actually you can't say that if we ask a number, how many public officers who have violated election laws you have punished, you have taken actions. At least not only election commission, at least how they are handling the complaint mechanism. Unfortunately, actually, that is very lower percentage of actions taken by them.
There's a lack of transparency on the information, or it's just there is no information available?
Maybe I can't say actually lack of accountability or transparency. Maybe there's no proper systems, because actually even now we are coordinating with the assistant commissioner of the head of EDR unit, even additional secretary or additional election commissioner of there. But the thing is it is the problem of delegation of power, because when you are meeting twice or thrice in a month, if you have to review all the complaints, how you are taking actions?
So in a nutshell, what you're saying is that the power is concentrated in the 3 commissioners, and that there is very little delegation of that power to the additional and assistant commissioners.
Definitely. Let me to give a prime example in a very short time. Actually, we saw that late Minister Mr. Arumugam Thondaman's funeral. Jeevan Thondaman, actually his son of late Minister,
Sorry,
Mr. Aruna.
Manjula, I have to just mention this because you also mentioned the DG of some of the department previously.
Okay.
I'll just remind you that guests on Face the Nation have to take responsibilities for the allegations that they level
Definitely.
at individuals or public officials.
Yeah. Okay, then
Yeah. So you go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, then we saw that actually that son of him, that Mr. Jeevan Arumugam, actually he's waving his hands and traveling from Gampola to his Nuwara area, waving his hands to people. Then we couldn't complain to election commission. But unfortunately, the thing is, when we ask from election commission, what election commission response is that if we have received a complaint, we can look after that matter. Otherwise, we are not in a position to do that because two things, that lack of resources, and also we don't have resources to do that in this time. But unfortunately, 3rd March active we are in pre-election situations. Then I can't understand why we are spending more than 7,000 million rupees for this election. At least they are responsible to purchase some TVs and arrange 1 or 2 persons to follow up some news bulletins. If they can do that, at minimum, if they can take such actions, actually, they can do a proper election monitoring mechanism.
Thank you, Manjula. Asoka, Executive Director, Transparency International Sri Lanka, actually, before we proceed, I think in the interest of transparency, you should disclose to our viewers, as we've done in the past as well, that I too am a consultant at TI Sri Lanka. Asoka, this issue of authorities, not just the Election Commission, but law enforcement authorities being not proactive, waiting for complaints to be filed, has been leveled over and over again. And we also see this issue of lack of follow-up action on complaints that are, I think the 3 election or 4 election monitoring organs, if you include CAFE as the Campaign for Free and Fair Elections as well, I think collectively there are thousands of complaints that go before the Election Commission at every election. But as Manjula said, we see very little progress or prosecution or enforcement or resolution of these complaints. What's the reason for this?
Well, I mean, I think as Manjula highlighted, there are some very talented, dynamic people also in the Elections Commission. And I think when we see some of the examples of how we have to work with district level Election Commission officials, when there are complaints around abuse of state resources, which is the main focus of the monitoring done by Transparency International Sri Lanka, we can see that when it comes to stopping things before they happen, there can be quite a lot of action with the election officials, the police, in ensuring that something that is happening or about to happen is stopped. There is quite a lot of energy. I think the issue is that if you don't get there in time, the idea of the accountability mechanism working afterwards,
After the offence has
after
been
the offence has occurred, that's where the challenge lies. And I think if I had to touch on one thing which was also brought in through the 19th Amendment, under Article 104 GG of the Constitution, there is now a provision that says that if a public official does not assist, and I mean, I'll read it to you, if he fails without a reasonable cause to comply with any direction or guidelines issued by the Commission, he shall be guilty of an offence and shall on conviction be liable to a fine not exceeding 100,000 rupees or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 years or to both. So I mean, these tools here are there now to ensure that if the guidelines of the Elections Commission are broken, and now our particular focus is on the guidelines connected to the preserving state resources, there is an accountability system, but the Elections Commission is yet to use this. So I think it's essential to lead by example and ensure that even after the election is over, that there are examples of this being exercised and people being prosecuted for not following the guidelines of the Elections Commission. Because otherwise, all that happens is it's just a big timing game. And then you just try to ensure that you do it in time, a little bit like when I think about the presidential election, some of the work that we're doing around the giving of jobs with state banks and things like that at the time of the presidential election. if it doesn't happen before before the giving of the job, then you almost feel like, is there the stamina to actually hold people accountable who made those decisions? So I think that's where the key challenge lies. And this just comes back to the general challenges around accountability and the fact that justice as well takes such a long time to be served.
You mentioned about the giving of jobs during ahead of the presidential election, which was an issue that you highlighted on several occasions. Jobs, concessionary loans, things like that. These spending of sort of government finances. Right now we're in a situation where there is no parliament, so that layer of oversight on public finance is essentially missing. But in the meantime, we've seen numerous stories in the media, negative publicity surrounding the beach nourishment program in Mount Lavinia. There's been negative publicity surrounding the cricket stadium, proposed cricket stadium in Homagama, around the building of expressways and other development projects. Even if you look at relief measures that have been taken by the government, which the Election Commission had asked the government to depoliticize, the 5,000 rupee allowance program. As an election monitor focused solely on misuse of public property, how do you deal with these challenges? What action can be taken to deter, to prevent, but also to ensure that there is accountability for any potential offences that might have been committed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at this point in time, this is a really challenging issue. And I mean, we wrote to the Elections Commission on the 23rd of April on this same point as well, which is that there is essential relief work that needs to take place. But also at the same time, we're in a campaign period. And I think the one thing that is clear is that even for the officials that have to administer these guidelines are also the general guidelines which are issued at every national election. You can see the general uniformity of it. And yet in this occasion right now, we have this unprecedented situation of having essential relief work and with a set of guidelines which do not really meet the immediate needs in trying to determine what actually amounts to relief work and what could be a potential abuse of state resource. So I think it's essential that also the Elections Commission also shows some innovation in looking to sort of develop the thinking around these guidelines as well, and also respond to the emerging needs. Because I mean, they are not sort of bound to only stick to this, if there is an emerging need, they can issue new guidelines to go further and to specify exactly how things should be handled to help even differentiate between what amounts to an abuse of state resource or what is essential relief work. It's an incredibly difficult task, but I think armed with the guidelines that we have at the moment, it is ever more difficult.
Has the Election Commission issued a fresh circular with fresh guidelines surrounding misuse of public property, including the use of public officials and public property like vehicles, buildings, etc., belonging to the state since the initial circular?
No, so the initial circular, which is from the 3rd of March, that remains in force. And I mean, the initial circular in the 3rd of March also recognized the election date as being the 25th of April. So I mean, this was certainly sort of pre-COVID thinking, but the guidelines remain the same, even though the circumstances have changed quite significantly.
Thank you. Before we go into the question round, just an open question for all three of our panelists. I'd like one of you to actually answer. Manjula briefly touched on this. We always talk about how enforcement agencies, independent commissions, etc., are possibly underfunded and lack resources. But why then are the people of Sri Lanka being told that they need to spend, as Manjula mentioned, 7 billion rupees on an election, if it's not for the Election Commission to ensure that the election is free and fair? What is the money being, if the Election Commission is unable to enforce these guidelines, why is that money required?
Yeah, that is good questions, because Elections Commission spending billions for elections, for democracy, for the people. But why they can't responsible the money which they spend, and why they can't stop these misuse of the government resources and the government power? Why they can't maintain the pre-fair election conditions if you are spending people's money? But as Ashoka mentioned, with this COVID situation is quite challenging. Whatever the guidelines they issued with the COVID immediate response, so sometime we may have to give some sort of excuses. But the one thing I wanted to highlight with regard to this COVID relief, from the beginning, the government officials were planned it properly. The Grama Niladhari, the development officer, Samurdhi, and those who are based in the village level, they are fully aware about their village. They know, they were aware about the poor people, those who need some assistance from the government. But unfortunately, without knowing this is the election, with the good fair knowledge about the election situation and the Elections Commissioner's guideline, the government issued the circular to include the local level representative, the local level politicians into the system. So that is the biggest mistake they have done, and it has done purposely to get the advantage, political advantage out of this welfare scheme. So this is the one which we raise at the Elections Commission. This is misuse in the government resources, even though they do it in a good faith for the country and good faith for the people, but this is not the way. And the second thing I wish to highlight with regard to the complaint mechanism, as Manjula said, the elections during the department period, they had a mechanism, but we wanted to have it in a more transparent and more accountable, as well as more participatory mechanism. So we initiate this in 2001, in the first time in local elections. Then we continue from 2006 elections again with support of the Elections Commission. The initial mechanism was that bring all the stakeholders in one table: the political party representative, elections observers, elections commissioners representative, the senior officials, and the police. They are the main stakeholders during elections period, other than the voters and the media. So the mechanism was, whenever the complaints come, it has to circulate all the stakeholders in that table. Then they have to take action within 30 minutes time. Actually, it was initiated only on the elections day. It was not success, 100% success first, second elections, but later it was quite success. Then everybody was aware, so what is the complaints, what is the actions. Within very short period, it was quite success. That is why the Elections Commission decide to continue it, not only the elections day, immediately after the nominations, and not only the elections headquarters, district level and the divisional secretaries level. How this is the way which they started. But unfortunately, as Manjula mentioned, now it is not functioning on that way. In transparency, accountability, we are not saying that they are not doing anything, but we are blind in certain areas, and they are not bring all the stakeholders in the same platform. Time to time we get update.
So the biggest problem there is that you file a complaint through the EDR mechanism, and then you have to wait for the commissioners who meet once every few months to review that complaint.
I think that is a new development for this elections. The last elections, we know that some complaints they took
action immediately.
Some complaints. But the serious issues, again, we were little blind and we were not aware, and they were not happy to discuss those things sometimes. But as you correctly mentioned, we spent people's money, millions, billions for these elections. So elections is, we are having elections for the people of this country. So it should be transparent mechanism, but we are not against the Elections Commission, because we also one stakeholder with the Elections Commission. We need to cooperate, we need to support the Elections Commissions. So we are there all the times, but certain areas need to improve. So that is what.
Thank you, Mr. Rohan Hettiarachchi, Manjula and Asoka. I'll open the floor for questions from our two journalists this evening, Mr. John Fernando and Ms. Azra Hassan. Azra, why don't you go first?
Yeah. Thank you, Majid. I would like to pose my first question to Mr. Rohan Hettiarachchi. Sri Lanka is facing a challenging time with the rest of the world. We have to ensure the safety of the general public. We have to ensure that a free and fair election is being conducted, because we can't move forward without a parliament. And we also have to think about the monetary aspect of the country. So given these challenges, what do you think should be our top priority with your experience in the field? What do you think should be our top priority when it comes to the betterment of the country?
I think first priority is the people of the country. Whether we have elections or not, we have to serious about the citizens of the country, their health. That is number one. But then again, we can't ignore the democracy. We can't ignore the parliament. So in Sri Lanka, we have three pillars. Those who running the country: judiciary, executive, and the parliament. Now we have a judiciary interventions only by request, but the executives are there. But we can't run without parliament for a longer period. As I mentioned from the beginning, now almost 3 months is going to complete by tomorrow, midnight today. So somehow we have to have a parliament. So if we are running all other activities during the COVID, because there is no zero COVID situations, we do not know. There is no expert to tell us, so okay, this is, so by end of this year it will be zero, or next year it will be zero. Nowhere in the world. So if we are running all other activities during COVID, so we have to think about. So we have to take all the measures by the authorities in a sense, mainly the Elections Commission, and also the government responsibility. The executive do have a responsibility with regard to the elections. It's not only the Elections Commission. So authority need to consider the health and also all other aspect of the pre-fair elections. So with that, I think we have to have elections. We can't say whether election is going to take place by July, or August, or September. It has to decide by the authority. But considering the health situations, without political affiliations. So now our worry is mostly, our in a sense, not, I think all of us, whether their decisions affiliated with the political authority, whether they serious about the political interest rather than the people's interest. So our point is, considering the people's interest, considering the people's health, somehow we have to think about the parliamentary elections as well.
Manjula, we spoke about several deficiencies in the system as well when it comes to the complaints and when it comes to expediting the process with regard to those things. We are facing challenges, like challenges we have not faced before. So in this situation, can this pressure on the National Election Commission or the authorities as a whole, can this pressure be a reason for the system to be overwhelmed? Can they actually handle this pressure and take the decisions in a way that will give the best result to the people?
Yes, actually, that according to our understanding, that in that sense, actually, in that regards, we should respect Election Commission, because first of all, the parliamentary general election scheduled on the 25th April. Then all of our organizations requested to postpone the elections. Then the Election Commission also on same view. Then they postponed the election. Even that 20th June also not a possible date for elections. Accordingly, we understood that actually Election Commission is more caring on this situation. It is okay. Then other thing is that how to handle this kind of situation, since this is not only for Sri Lanka. all over the world are suffering through this pandemic situation. Accordingly, actually, we should say that Election Commission 1 week ago convened a special meeting to discuss, to prepare guidelines to how to handle, how to tackle these kind of situations. As we understood that Ministry of Health also issued their first interim assessment report to Election Commission. Now they are considering, and that final assessment reports to be given maybe shortly, maybe within 2 or 3 days. Accordingly, the main thing is, I mean, election processes, that when we see the first draft issued by Minister of Health, that it is totally challengeable. If you are given time to explain that, I can mention 2 things. That, let's see like this: poll cards shall be enveloped in a polythene cover. Keep the poll card for 3 days in the post office before distribution. I mean, it is taking lot of time. Not only that social distancing factor is there, and also we have to convert into online systems. Let's say maybe all of us are familiar with that, how elections are preparing, because it is consuming more paper. Election means a paperwork actually. Then it is not an easy task to convert to online methods. Then the challenging is that, I should say that Election Commission is taking consideration to handle this situation much. If we are saying that, because there are many options like how to conduct the elections. Now they are considering to hold scattered elections, maybe to hold the elections 2 days. Let's say that counting processes must be one of main challenging operation will be the counting process, because you have a very small classroom, then you have to pull 30 or 40 people. Then now they are inventing now new options, like you can handle counting process 1 room, then you can put CCTV, and polling agents and observers can stay in the separate room with CCTV facilities. I mean, if you have willingness, you can do that. The only thing is, maybe you have allocated. We have Election Commission, actually Treasury have already allocated 7 billion rupees. Maybe it will increase up to maybe 14 billion rupees. That means 14,000 million rupees for the elections. Democracy is always is very cost. That means with the COVID situation, maybe previous estimated cost will be increased much.
Manjula, speaking about democracy, I would like to elaborate on one point that Mr. Rohana mentioned during the introduction. You mentioned that for the election to be free and fair, each candidate should have a fair ground. We know campaigning, mass gatherings, distribution of leaflets, they are all healthy measures of election, but not so healthy considering the COVID-19 situation in the country at the moment. Against that backdrop, we all know that due to the politicization of the COVID-19 situation, certain candidates representing the government are much highlighted, or they receive an upper hand in front of the general public when it comes to elections. So we know we have 3,652 candidates representing political parties, and then 3,800 candidates representing individual or independent groups, 7,452 candidates in total. So how can, with the situation, we have no way of conducting mass gatherings, it's not practical to go door to door and express your plan or the candidate's plan to the people. So with such a situation, how can a fair ground be established for each candidate in order to make sure that the elections will be free and just?
That is the biggest challenge which we will face, and there should be some sort of discussions among the political party and the elections commissions. What are the alternative campaigning method which they can use? Because last 72 years that is this public gathering is the prominent campaigning method across the country. Now, as you said that there are about 7,452 candidates. Out of that, there will be at least 2,000, 2,500 serious candidates whom we are really planning to go to the parliament. So what are the alternative methods? But what you mentioned about this house-to-house campaign is legal here with the limited crowd, but the candidate, I mean, according to the existing law, the candidate or his immediate family members can't request vote from anybody, but their supporters, if they have a proper plan across the district, they can send a small team to house-to-house campaigning. But the problem here again, whether the voters are happy to welcome, whether they welcome the candidate representative in when they do their campaigning house to house, because nobody wanted to accept the COVID, so there is no guarantee on that. Then the posters and cutout, again it is illegal according to the law, so you can't use the posters and cutout. There are only very limited space in their office premises. They can do it, and only occasion where the candidate is running, so they can use at their vehicle. So this is the limitation. So with that, what is the alternative campaigning methods? We propose, as Manjula mentioned, the previous meeting which we had with the Elections Commission, I mean, if you have a proper communications with the political party, the Elections Commission, anyway they are sending the poll card each and every household. So if the political party is willing to give their candidate the profile, maybe one-page document for each candidate, if they are willing to provide that, the Elections Commission can think about to collect all these profile and make a one document and send to the political the voters. So then voters will get some sort of idea about the candidate. I think the Taiwan, they are doing that without COVID. So as a practice, they inform the voters, so these are your candidates, this is their profile. So then well in advance we can assess our candidate in an official manner, because but it's all depend what the candidate or the political parties are sending. So that is one area where Elections Commission can think. And we have 14,000 plus the Gramalidaris division. So mostly the polling station established, I think the polling centers in Sri Lanka 9,000 dot number. I can't remember the exact number. Polling stations around 13,500. So whether we can have the big board each and every polling stations, and whether we can allocate some space for each and every political party to post the posters. I can remember the Bangladesh. Bangladesh is not a well-established country, but Bangladesh also do have the system. So each and every candidate can have a small size posters. Nobody will damage it once they post somewhere. There is a size, there is a color. So the same manner we can exercise it here. So I mean, like that, we have to have a discussion on this matter. So to get the alternative measures.
Mr. Asoka, just on this issue of campaigning and alternate campaign methods, campaigning is a big money sort of spinner, and I think this was made all the more clear following a recent quite brazen statement by a politician, by a member of parliament, who said that it's crucial that we hold the elections as soon as possible to ensure the economic recovery, because all of the black money that politicians are holding will be put into the election campaigning and will therefore circulate in the economy. I mean, as brazen as that statement is, it does highlight a serious issue in our election system, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think as most of the viewers will also be aware of, I mean, we have no real meaningful campaign finance regulations. So as a consequence, this issue around black money moving into the political system. I think this is also an issue because, I mean, Rohan and Manjula touched on this idea of, equal. I mean, Article 93 of the Constitution highlights the necessity for sort of, this idea of equality in an election. And I mean, when you think about the way in which black money can end up raising the barriers to entry significantly, I think that's a huge, huge issue. Coupled onto that, I'll maybe just touch on two other issues that connect. On one side, Sri Lanka has a big issue, or had a big issue, connected to black money and being a money laundering, considered a money laundering hotspot. As a consequence of that, a great deal of effort was put in by the central bank to get Sri Lanka off this grey list of the Global Financial Action Task Force of the G20 countries. I don't think we ever realized how deep a problem we were in. If we did not get off that grey list, the chances were that our domestic financial systems would not have been able to carry out very, very simple banking tasks that we take for granted. So that was a big step in the right direction. And the fact that there's so much talk around black money or no questions asked policies to get money into the country, I think is a concern, not only in the election, but beyond the election generally. And maybe one final point I'll make, because I know Rohana was touching also on this issue around the importance of Parliament and, the need for Parliament to, for parliamentary functions to take place. I think one point there is also around the fact that Sri Lanka has a debt ceiling. Sri Lanka is also a middle income country which relies on going to international debt markets to raise funding. And so one of the challenges is that if our debt ceiling is not raised, which can only be done by Parliament, right, we risk this issue of trying to tap into sovereign debt, potentially whenever that may be, and actually that being, and us having gone beyond our debt ceiling. And there is a potentially really big financial crunch that can come from that, So I mean, that's just one other...
Also, the government seems to feel that this is not an issue at the present time, that they are able to raise the money that they need, and that's why they don't need, that's the argument that is being made.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the issue is that there isn't a great deal of visibility on what the debt ceiling is and where we are at the moment. So I mean, it's good for, I mean, I would be the happiest if that is not an area of concern, but I would only be convinced once the figures are made public and there is, that is discussed publicly.
On this, on the grey listing, Sri Lanka has since been delisted or removed from the Financial Action Task Force's grey list, and then thereafter also from an EU grey list more recently, which possibly was prompted by the FATF's decision in the first place. But when you look at the concerns that still exist around money laundering, when you look at the brazen statements that are being made by politicians around the existence of black money in the system, how seriously do organizations like the Financial Action Task Force themselves take their own sort of guidelines? Because has there really been a change to warrant being delisted, to warrant being removed from the grey list? Or have we simply sort of checked a checklist?
I mean, I think it's fair to say that there was a long checklist of things that needed to be done. And I think there were, more than 40 things that had to be done on that checklist, and I think we covered a lot of it. Maybe the one distinction that I would make is that, we have to distinguish between what are the sorts of views of bureaucracy and the way that bureaucracy who actually administers the system view things, and then the sort of flippant utterances of politicians who may say one thing or another, which may not actually reflect the way in which the administration or the bureaucrats view things. So I mean, I think there may be a slight difference there, and I've got a feeling at times on issues like this.
Do you also feel that, just on that point of differing perspectives, do you also feel that maybe there's a different way in which the FATF and the bureaucracy sees it, and how an idealistic, a more idealistic civil society activist might perceive it.
Absolutely, you know, without a doubt. But I think the point which I'm making is that ultimately, the entities like FATF or the European Union that has followed the lead, I suspect, of FATF in delisting, will end up going and seeking sort of clarifications from the bureaucrats, you know. And so, I think it's highly irresponsible to be speaking in that fashion, as you mentioned, a former member of parliament speaking, because I think the issue there is that it also has that very corrosive effect of impacting the way in which people think and normalizing the role of black money in our economy, right?
And in our elections.
In our elections, in our economy, yeah. But I mean, so it's a grave concern. But I think the one important thing is that we don't want to be taking back steps at a time when we've just got off the grey list.
Thank you, Asugu. Manjula, and this, Rohan, I'd like your opinion on this as well. Manjula, I'm aware that some time back, the March 12th movement actually presented a draft on campaign finance legislation to the Election Commission, I believe this was about 2 years ago. And we also saw President Sirisena highlighting the importance of capping campaign spending ahead of the election. The president seemed keen to have this legislation adopted before the election was held, but that did not come to reality. What is the progress that has been made on this campaign finance legislation? Is it moving anywhere?
No, actually it is freezing, not moving. That's the problem at the moment. That yes, 2 years ago actually started that process. PAFREL, CMEV as well as TISL, all the election monitoring missions came forward to draft such a piece of legislation, as well as after that, once we started the process, Election Commission also started the same process, and frankly we should say that comparing with both the draft, we saw that the election commission, the draft submitted by Election Commission is more comprehensive, because they have included the more legal provisions as well as actually they have touched many other experiences, also even local and international experience we also submitted. But when we realize that they have more strength with that, when they have put more strength to that document, actually we also followed that, we also thought to follow that document and support it. But after that, what has happened that they submitted it to the legal draftman. Legal draftman also made their observations. After that, finally they have submitted into the Attorney General. Now it is freezing, maybe Attorney General's department. As you mentioned, yes, there was a positive thinking with President Maithripala Sirisena, as well as not only President, actually Prime Minister also. We personally met President and submitted it. At that time, actually, he mentioned that he also willing to support this, because he know the importance of this such a document, because he was suffering to collect money to his own campaign even before a few decades ago, and he mentioned that a story at that one of voters given 20 rupees or 30 rupees to him at that time. At that time, actually, we saw that yes, both President and Prime Minister and also Minister Faisal Mustafa, actually they had good positive remarks. They were given good positive remarks on that process. But after that, as usual, actually it is freezing there. Now, before the dissolvement of Parliament, Election Commission has submitted a special letter to Speaker asking to establish a special parliamentary select committee to oversee some matters, especially campaign finance, 18 plus voting, as well as out of country voting, and some few matters. Now actually, as March 12 movement and personally actually as the organizational levels, we are willing to take up this issue once new parliament is launched.
Sorry, John, before I come to you, Rohana, we saw during the bond commission hearings, it came to light that a certain politician had received a check, a cash, or it was brought forward by by those leading evidence at the bond commission that a certain politician had allegedly received a cash check for 1 million rupees from one of the entities or one of the companies connected to the bond scam. Don't you think that it's a huge problem in our system, in our election system, that one, the politicians receiving that money don't have to mention where it came from, and two, it's not technically illegal to receive money in that way?
Actually, yes, it happened in the past, and also it may happen even now.
It may be happening right now.
Yeah, we do not know. But unfortunately, whatever we discuss during elections campaigning period, but after that nobody is serious about it. So even this central bank bond scam issues, I think no actions taken yet. Now the two government were discussing about this. The previous government also, the later part of the government, they discussed this to take actions. But the present government also, yes, there's no actions. But if we, as both of them mentioned, if you have these campaign finance regulations, you can't take the money like that. So in our initial draft, which we submit to President Sirisena, and as well as during that period, we have circulated all the parliamentarians, and we appeal them to take it up. But unfortunately, when they met, they appreciate that, but no actions. But I think Ms. Mustafa was quite serious. But unfortunately, even the document which we sent to the hand over to the president, he returned it to the election commissioner. But we asked him to submit to the cabinet and take decisions. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. The document which prepared by the elections commission, it approved by the cabinet 2 times. Before they sent it to the attorneys and after the attorneys' submission. It was in the final stage to submit the parliament. But later we realized, immediately after the presidential elections, the attorney's department again written to the elections commission that we need to get the new cabinet approval to proceed the document, because the government has changed. But if we able to bring this law, those things are included this draft. So where are the place you can get the money? So what is the limitations? What are the organizations or individual you can't get the money? How many percentage one person can contribute overall campaigning expenses? Because sometimes, let's say, one person can say, even John can say, okay, for your elections campaign, I will spend whatever the money, millions or billions. So what will happen at the end of the day? If I win, then I have to follow what he says. And so we have include, because the campaign finance regulations is not new things. There are many countries which is exercising. So we can get a lot of experience from outside the Sri Lanka. So if we can pass these basic regulations, actually we should have a political party campaign finance, political finance regulation we should have. Our request is at least campaign finance regulations. The CMEB and PAFRL, now we have running one case in Monragala. It's also related to campaign finance, but we don't have such a law for that. But we have a law for vote buying. So you can't buy the voters during elections campaigns. So one of the local authority, local candidate, he spent millions, I think around 30 million plus vote buying in his specific area. So there is no pre-fair elections there. So I think if we are serious about pre-fair elections, that is the #1 request, demand for campaign finance regulation. Without campaign finance regulations, not only the COVID situation, even in the past, those who have money, whether it's a good money or a black money, so they will get the advantage. Unfortunately, the voters of this country also, those who are popular with the paper advertisements or the TV advertisement, if you see every day, every other day in TV, the people think that he's the good man. So people vote. So it is very clear those who have financial power, they will get additional advantage during elections. So it is not free, fair elections.
Sorry, John.
Yeah. Mr. Rohana, now speaking about campaigning, it's clear that with the current health situation in the country, social media itself will play a major role when it comes to campaigning. During the presidential election, there were accusations stating that an army of laptops, over 1,500 computers or individuals were using social media to sling a mud at candidates. So recently, on a TV program, Dr. Anil Jasinghe mentioned that such a group of computers or individuals used the same mechanism to overly exaggerate the COVID-19 situation in the country in order to politicize the situation. So it's clear that during the upcoming campaigning period, social media will definitely be a very powerful tool when it comes to campaigning. How can rules or regulations be implemented? Will the Elections Commission be able to curb violations of rules when it comes to social media?
Yeah, it will be 100 times when we compare with the previous elections. As you correctly said, so the upcoming elections, one of the main, because the candidate can't go for a campaigning for the real ground. So the most of the candidates, those who have not much money, they will try to use the social media. I think it has already started.
Yeah.
So the Elections Commission, or rather the elections law, there is no specific provisions for social media. But with the Elections Commissioner's regulations, and especially with the close communications with the Facebook groups, so the Election Commission can have some sort of effort to control these situations. The last elections, as PAFL, we had a separate team to monitor the social media. Actually, 2 teams we deployed, and we had a very close communications with the Elections Commission as well as the Facebook groups. And I think the CMEV specifically with the Facebook as well as the Twitter. We have very close communications with them. So we had a system to monitor the hate speech, misinformations, disinformations, elections law violations, and we immediately informed to the Elections Commissions, and within very short periods, within 2 hours period, they were agreed to send it to the Facebook and other relevant the social media agencies to block it, and it's depend on the case. But it was not fully success, but only during cooling period, the action was quite fast and quite success. So this time too, as you said, it will happen. So we have to have a pre-plan how we are going to monitor that, how we are going to block the misusing the social media and misinformations among the public, because this is very critical during COVID situations. Let's say, for example, so one, I don't know whether I should tell it publicly, but let's say in one polling stations during elections day, if the political party or groups who are running there, if they know that this polling station is more towards such and such a party, then the other party can send the message across the social media or many other mechanisms. So there are COVID patients, or polling officials are affected by COVID, then nobody will come to the polling stations. So the social media will play good role and bad role during elections period. So definitely Elections Commission should have, even though we don't have the proper the legal framework, but with the existing framework, they have to have a mechanism. That is why we call now it's an Election Commission. During the department period, they can follow only the law. Now, with the commissions, they need to think, I mean, 3-member commission, they need to think out of the way.
But Mr. Rohana now...
Maybe just one thing also,
Yeah.
just to add on to what Rohana is saying,
Please.
is also the fact that it is encouraging, whilst it hasn't been perfect, the fact that Facebook has also connected with the Elections Commission to give an expedited reporting mechanism for the Elections Commission, which isn't there for an ordinary person who reports something. So the fact that that facility is there and made available to the Elections Commission is encouraging. I think it can only get better with time, but I think it's a good thing to ensure that sort of social media regulation and sort of the hate speech and all of this misinformation can be regulated to some degree.
Also, we saw Facebook had issued an apology recently, and it had included Sri Lanka, and it said that it apologizing for its for shortcomings on their part in preventing the spread of misinformation, leading to incidents of violence as well. When you compare, because you mentioned that in at least in this that they'd connected with the Election Commission and that a facility had been extended to the Election Commission, an expedited reporting facility. But when you look at the sort of political ads that are run, not necessarily from the official pages of the candidates or the official pages of the parties, but from the various sort of avatars of these political parties and campaigns and movements, when you look at the sort of content that is still coming out, are you confident that Facebook is that within their, that not just Facebook, but even other social media platforms, are you confident that within their reporting mechanisms that they can make a significant difference in ensuring integrity in the electoral process?
Well, I mean, I think I don't know the data on Facebook's resource capability in Sinhala. I think, and Tamil for that matter, I suspect it's probably greater in Tamil than it probably is in Sinhala. But I mean, the fact that this sort of expedited system is there is encouraging, but I can't underwrite it. But what I would say is, for any viewer, that this just underscores the value of reporting an issue like this with an election monitoring organization or the Elections Commission, so that that expedited system can take place. Because I've got a feeling the whole thing is that this is about an expedited system when the Elections Commission flags it up. But the whole thing is, this does not, and from my understanding of it, this does not mean that Facebook is actively and proactively hunting out this misinformation. It's about dealing with it when it's reported. So that's why it's very important for those who are watching to also take on the responsibility of not only being dissatisfied when they see some content like that, but then also acting to report it. You know, and I think that's, you know, this idea of action is the key thing, you know, for all of us. I mean, even for our own organizations, you know, it's important that once we see something wrong, that we act on it, as opposed to just feeling annoyed by it, you know. So I think maybe that's an important message to the citizen as well, to actively engage.
Yeah,
Manjula, just coming to you as well, I know that at the previous election, CMEV was making some effort to track the spending on, not just on TV, radio and this thing, but also the spending on social media for election campaigns. We know that at the last election, as you reported, or as the organization reported, there was several billion rupees that had been spent on the campaign. Do you have an estimation of what the campaign expenditure will look like this time around?
Yeah, it is. I should say that it also just like a tip of iceberg, because we found that all of 35 presidential candidates has spent over nearly 3,000 million rupees for their election campaign. Out of 35 persons, actually 2 persons have spent 90% out of 35 million.
The two major candidates.
Yeah, major portion. But that again, when it comes to before I forgot to tell that we should thanks serious, especially because your television, also because you provided all the details proactively, what we requested during our during our project. Again, actually, we are going to start that same program in this time also. But let me to add something what we are stopped by Mr. Asoka, that when it comes to social media, that we were requesting continuously from Facebook that we should have the freedom to take their reports, because two things, that at library reports and library report and at library options, those two things. If we can access those two things, actually we can calculate how many sponsored ad they have published within their networks. But unfortunately, last time they have activated those two options in India and other regions also, other countries also. But last time actually they didn't give access to that. In this time, they have agreed to give options, access to for that options. Then we believe that they will give that access. Then if so, we can count, because last time we saw that only 13 million rupees have spent by politicians according to our numbers, but we know that politicians have spent more than that, because we didn't have such options that time. And other point is that the main problem is why that Mr. Rohan said that the last time the most of platforms, including Facebook, played a negative role in that during election time period. The main thing is that they are taking quite a lot of time to remove or scale down something like post when posted during campaign period. The thing is, still they are maintaining their community standards. That's the problem actually. We have only 35 days or 50 days campaign period. When they are taking 7 or 8 days to scale down or remove a post, using their community standard, it is a problem. Then all of organization have requested them in last time actually when they met, we told them that please follow the guidelines and law issued by Election Commission. If they can refer those guidelines, at least the code of ethics and also media guidelines and everything, it is very easy to remove or scale down their post. It is number one. Number two is that actually Mr. Asok also touched that point, that fact checkers and language monitors, because they have only 2 fact checkers, but they are doing a great job. I should mention that, because that's why they apologized even now due to that regarding that previous case. That language monitors, still we don't know how many language monitors they have, especially Sinhala and Tamil medium. As Mr. Rohana said that yes, it may be the negative impact will be more in 100 times in next elections. If so, they should have hundreds of thousands of language monitors, but they have not revealed yet. Then there should be a proper mechanism between Election Commission, Facebook, as well as election monitoring missions in these situations to tackle this issue. If so, they have to reveal how many language monitors they have at the moment and how many they are going to increase focus in next election.
Sorry,
Rohana,
John Azra.
thanks, Majid. The most frequently used words during this entire discussion were action not taken, or that we are not being proactive at the moment. And authorities and the people of this country, they are right now distracted by the prevailing situation in the country. So with that being given, if the election is to be held, this another new bunch of complaints can be added to the ordinary list of complaints that we have in the country. So what can you do to expedite the process and ensure that there's transparency and a just system in the country?
It's depend on the Elections Commission will. I mean, if we can't establish the proper mechanism, proper transparency, speed up process for complaint mitigations, then there is no pre-elections. So the whole argument, we are not negative with the Elections Commission, because they have done a good job during the past years. Compared with in Asian regions, we are much better. I have experience across Asia as an elections observer. So in Sri Lankan Elections Commission, is compared with other countries, independent, much better. Even the complaint mechanism also, they have done something. So we are happy with that. But in these elections, we have identified, we have realized there is no the proper speed up mechanism. Even the last elections also, we are not happy in certain extent. So if you are deciding election date, they should be capable enough to have a proper mechanism of the complaint mitigation. So our argument is, don't think about the date if you can't run the proper elections. So we know that, we understand with the COVID situations, you can't do the same thing which they have done in the previous elections. But then we have to have alternative mechanisms. So the COVID gave us the best opportunity to think about out of the box. Campaigning, electoral system, advanced voting, the different areas where we need to think before we proceed the elections. So our request, our argument with the Elections Commission, don't decide the date just to have elections, but you have to serious about all other aspect of the pre-fair elections.
If I can add,
Yes,
add one thing actually, that another problem is that you may be aware that Election Commission doesn't have prosecuting power. All the B reports should be go through the Sri Lanka police. When they are submitting their B reports against any perpetrators, then the thing is actually that it might be the channels, I mean the actions they are taking by very vague. That's why most of times actually we are requesting to strengthen the legal unit of elections, because if they can prosecute in people, I mean if they can submit like B reports to courts, actually they can speed up the process. But unfortunately most of cases are pending, still pending, because the actions Sri Lanka police is not taking immediate actions to speed up the process. That is another scenario related to this.
Just to add one point, actually we should have a special court for election related issues. Actually we are demanding that in longer period now, because you know, not only during election period, there are many cases as patrol. I think we have submit more than 10 cases now. Some cases went up to 5-6 years. So it is not justice. So end of the day we will get something, but it's not justice. So elections issues, there should be some sort of speed process, even the judiciary system.
Thank you.
But at least that within the elections department or election commission, there should be a speed up process, transparent mechanism for that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rohne, Hettiarachchi, Asoka and Manjula. On that note, we'll go in for a quick commercial break. Something to think about. At the end of the day, we'll get something, but it's not justice. We'll be right back.
මයිමෙන් අපි ගැනත් පොඩ්ඩක් කියන්නකෝ. එතකොටනේ රටම අපි ගැන දැනගන්නේ.
මායිම හැමදාම හැමදේම දිනපතා රාත්‍රී 7:30ට.
මගහැරුණු පාඩම් ටික ටීවී එකෙන් ඉගෙන ගන්න. TV1 Classroom නව පන්ති ආරම්භුණා. සතියේ සෑම දිනකම සවස 6 සිට 7 දක්වා. සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ උසස් පෙළ ගොඩ යන්න. TV1 Classroom ඉගෙන ගන්න ටීවී බලමු.
වදින තැන්වලට වදින්න, රිදෙන තැන්වලට රිදෙන්න.
අපි නිවුස් 8 නිවුස් ෆස්ට් එහෙම නෙමෙයි.
ඒක වෙනයි මේක වෙනයි.
අංගු පේරු නැති සීරු මාරු නැති.
එකයි කියන්නේ හිටියොත් හොඳට හැදී කර්ෆියු ඉබේ ඇරි.
මම ගීතයක අහලා තියෙනවා සලලිහිනියෝ නුඹ දන්නේ නෑ පෙම් සිතක සුව හඳුනන්නේ නෑ සාගරය බඳු පෙම් ආදරය දැනුනොත් නුඹ කූඩුවේ ඉන්නේ නෑ කියලා. ආදරය කරන්න ටිකක් දුරින් ඉඳන් මොකද තාම බෙහෙතක් නෑනේ.
අනේ මන්දා.
සරලවම කියනවා නම් අපි වෙනස්. ඒ වෙනසේ හැඩය තීරණය කරන එක ඔබට බාරයි.
රටට දැනෙන නිවුස් වෙනස.
News 8.
Welcome back to Face the Nation. We're in conversation with representatives of 3 of the major election monitoring organizations in the country regarding the challenges that we're facing ahead of the 2020 parliamentary election. Whenever that election date will be, we're all looking forward to see what transpires in the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka tomorrow, which will give us a clearer indication of when an election can be held. We're in the final segment of the program, and I'd like to start with Mr. Asoko Obesekara, the Executive Director of Transparency International Sri Lanka. I'm posing the same question to all 3 of our panelists in this final round. Asoko, what is it that the voters, especially in this sort of situation with the global pandemic ongoing, with all these questions pertaining to constitutional crises and financial transparency, what is it that the voters should be looking for, that the citizenry should be vigilant about as we head into this election?
But I think above all else, I mean, I think the state will also be thinking in this way, but it's essential that we put our health above everything. And I'm sure that the elections will only be held once the state is confident that they can do so with safely. So I think that should ideally go without saying. On the other front, I mean, I think, you know, our voter is also becoming ever more discerning. And so in becoming ever more discerning, you know, looking for those who are looking to do things a little differently as well. So I mean, you know, one area of which I've spoken on many times on this show is, I mean, has your member of parliament, is someone that you're thinking of voting for, been willing to sort of unilaterally disclose their asset declaration as an example, you know? Just looking for people who are looking to innovate and do things a little differently to sort of show the way in which they're putting themselves in front of the people. Another area that I would sort of suggest to a voter is to also try and discern and understand how any person that you may consider voting for, what they have done in their life, but also how have they performed if they have previously been in parliament. And there are platforms like Mantri.lk and other things where they can assess how their parliamentarians have been functioning as legislators, which is something that's often forgotten. And finally, I had an opportunity of speaking at a Voter Act conference a few days ago, and to a group of young people. And I think the one point which I really sort of highlighted there was about trying to find people who also reflect the aspirations of the next generation of people. Because I think one thing that we have to also be conscious of is that Sri Lanka has an aging population. And young people need to go and get engaged and vote and really be involved in civic life. Otherwise, lots of the decisions that are going to be made are not going to really represent them. So it's essential that young people also go out and vote as well.
Thank you, Asoka. Manjula, same question. What is it that voters need to look for ahead of this election?
Yeah, actually, ultimately, this is going to be the largest and biggest logistic operation in Sri Lanka, because that Sri Lanka to be taken place in every 5-year time that nearly 300,000 government officers and spending of minimum 7 million,
billion
7,000 million rupees. The number of total voters are nearly 16 million. That considering these facts, actually we would like to see a voter who can see things in new way, in a fresh mind, actually, without selecting we know how they are traditionally selecting people. At least as March 12 movement always preaching that if they can try to select a people suitable candidate who are appreciating, who are following clean politics, it might be better. If they need any guideline, actually March 12 movement already issued some of like 8 or 10 maybe 8 criteria to select, as well as actually more or less technology friendly elections this time, maybe because election commission and also election observation missions today, actually all active election monitoring missions issued a pledge supporting these elections, 2020 Sri Lankan parliamentary elections, COVID-19 code of conduct for election observers. Actually, we pledge today to follow all the guidelines issued by government as well as to be issued by election commission of Sri Lanka. Then as election monitors also we should respect, and we are going to follow that. Lastly, actually, that a free and fair elections without having any of COVID-19 patients. That is my ambition.
Thank you very much, Manjula Gajanayaka, the National Coordinator of the Centre for Monitoring Election Violence. And finally, Mr. Rohana Hettiarachchi, Executive Director of PAFREL. Rohana, what is it that voters need to look for going into this election?
I think easily I will endorse what both of them said. But other than that, the two angles which I wish to highlight in the last minute. One is the voters need to vigilant the pre-fair elections in 2020. So they need to vigilant about the elections commissions, their actions. They need to vigilant about the political party, because they are going to select. We are going to select our parliament. And the second angle is, at this moment, most of the young people, they are completely challenging the existing parliament. They say that no, we need to remove all these 225 parliamentarians. So as March 12 movement, we are not in that line. But at least, what is this coming elections? This coming elections is, we are selecting parliamentarians. So we need to select the better people to deliver at the parliament in the main role as a lawmakers, as a policymakers, as monitoring the Sri Lankan people's money, the control of the Sri Lankan people's money. So that is, I think, one of the critical area where we are discussing even now these days about the finance. So we need to select the people who can deliver these three areas mainly. And we need to think about the clean politicians, because sometimes some people, they can deliver, but at the end of the day, the main objective will be earning money by themselves. So the voters need to be very careful on these issues, because otherwise no point just to have elections and just to select 225 parliamentarians on behalf of us. If they are not capable enough, if they are not deliver what we expect as a citizen. So we need to select people's representative, not just parliamentarian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rohana Hettiarachchi, Executive Director of PAFREL. Thank you again, Manjula Gajanayaka, the National Coordinator for CMAV. And thank you, as always, to Asoko Besekara, the Executive Director of TISL. Thank you, Azra and John. We discussed many issues during tonight's program. We talked about the challenges in conducting an election during a global pandemic situation. We spoke about many issues ranging from campaign finance and asset declarations of candidates to the lack of resources, the need for greater enforcement on the part of the Election Commission, and also the role of the Sri Lanka Police in upholding election laws and ensuring a level playing field. What is it that you as the citizenry can do? One of the major issues that we spent a lot of time on tonight's show was social media. And in today's post-truth kind of world, one thing that you as the citizenry can do to ensure that we combat misinformation spread on social media is to always keep in mind that a lie can get halfway across the world before the truth even has a chance to get its pants on. On that note, I bid you farewell. Good night and goodbye.